Alright, g'day guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to speak a little bit more about depth of field. I did a previous tutorial on this where I went through the relations between f2.8 and f22 and how they affect the overall focus of your image as well as keeping the exposure and the actual overall image the same. Today we've got a question that comes through from Adam Jennings from Newcastle, Australia. Adam's question is, when I shoot video I have trouble getting things in focus and sometimes it looks as if my video has sand flickering on the screen. Can you explain what's happening? Definitely. Thank you so much for the question. When you're talking about focus, there's two areas that you've always got to keep in mind. The first one is your aperture, which involves your depth of field. Secondly, it's your focus points. A lot of DSLRs these days, you have control on where you want the scene to be focused on. For instance, if you had a cup in front of you, you can focus on that and have the background drop out of focus, or vice versa, you can have the background in focus and have the foreground fall out of focus. You're also talking about sand flickering on the screen. Now, unless you've accidentally been to the beach and got sand in your sensor, I'm guessing what you're talking about is noise. Now, noise comes from higher ISOs and poor quality light. When I'm talking about poor quality light, I'm talking about darker times in the night where you don't have as much light as you'd really like to. So the sensor kind of struggles to be able to see what you want it to see. The main area of noise does come from ISO. This also reverts back into the film days when people were shooting on higher ASAs. 800, 1600 was maximum then. These days, most DSLRs can be pushed to 32, 6400, which is excellent. At the expense of lower quality images and video though, that does come with shooting at a higher ISO. Specifically why bodies like the 1DX and the Nikon D4 and D3S are more expensive, because they have cleaner images and cleaner video at higher ISOs. So what we should talk about quickly is the exposure triangle. Now this reverts to video as well as photography. The exposure triangle is basically your shutter speed, your aperture value and your ISO value all played together. These three elements will give you a correct exposure. These three elements play a part. They all work simultaneously to be able to give you a correct exposure through photos and through video. Your shutter speeds, your aperture and your ISO all have many different values and they all work completely individually at times. For instance, aperture values range from 1.2, 1.4, 1.8, 2, 2.8, 3.5, 5.6, 11, 9, 18, 22, 36. Aperture values go all the way up. Same with shutter speeds. It varies from 30 seconds to 20 seconds, 25, 8, 10 seconds, 1/400th of a second, 1/8000th of a second. There is about, in between all of these values, there is probably 30 or 40 different calculates and fractions that you can choose from. Same with your ISO, 200, 400, 800, all the way up to 12,800. So learning to be able to put all of these together in certain situations is really going to be able to help. Now, they do vary. You will always be changing these once you start to shoot more. Your aperture value, shutter speed and ISO are continuously changing, especially once you move into manual. Shooting at night, for instance, when you're shooting a time lapse on the road or a long exposure, is going to be completely different settings to when you're shooting sports. Shooting at night when you're doing a long exposure on the road might be f22 at 30 seconds and ISO 200. When you're shooting something like sports, obviously it's a lot more motion that you want to capture, so your shutter speed needs to vary to over 1/1000th of a second, and your aperture value can vary from 2.8 to f11, f13. It really does change. Now, each situation you're going to be using different settings. Now, this also applies to photography as well as video. So what I'll also go over is, I want to talk quickly about the difference again between lower F numbers and higher F numbers, depth of field, shallow and greater depth of field. I'll talk quickly about macro focusing ranges, the quality again of ISOs and focusing points. So what we'll do is we'll jump inside. I've got a quick setup of just a guitar and I can talk a little bit more then. Anyway, I hope I'm going to help in this video, so I'll catch up with you guys soon. Alright, bye. Alright guys, welcome back. So here we have set up directly in front. I'm recording the back of a D7000 camera, which is a camera that Adam stated he had. So this is going to make it a lot easier for him. I'm recording the back of it with a Nikon D3S with a 24 to 70mm lens. So what I'm going to go over firstly is, you mentioned in the first part of your comment
When I shoot video, I have trouble getting things in focused, and sometimes it looks as if my video has sand flickering. So we'll worry about the focus part first. Now, as I mentioned, this is a D7000, so this is going to work perfectly for you because that's the body that you said that you have. Now, I'm in live view at the moment, and what you might be able to see is I have a red crosshair that's moving around the screen. Now, the beauty of this is your focusing point. You have complete control over this. It does go even further. Let's say, for instance, I want to zoom right in to focus on something. I'm shooting with a macro lens at the moment. I'm doing this solely because macro focusing is the most precise focusing you can really get. It becomes quite difficult because there's an old saying: the tighter you are in on your subject, the narrower your depth of field is going to be. So, which is very, very true. So the beauty about the D7000 is down in the bottom left-hand corner you have the plus symbol. Now, if I press that, it digitally zooms into certain areas. So let's go and zoom right in on this 5. Now this is very, 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 very close. I can hold down the shutter release halfway down. It's going to focus, and there you go. I can move right back out, and I can then take the photograph. Again, macro focusing is always very, very tight, so we can move to a different area. Let's say we want to zoom, let's go up to the edge of the bridge. So we can go all the way up here. Again, we'll plus all the way in. It's just looking like bokeh at the moment because I'm at quite a wide aperture. I can go to focus it there. Absolutely perfect. I can then zoom back out, and now the focus has shifted all the way to the edge. Again, the beauty of this is you can be very, very precise. And it will help a lot. You can also do this exact same method through the eyepiece. Obviously, I can't record into the eyepiece, so live view is working perfectly for us at the moment. So that was the first way. I'd say always get used to moving your eyepiece around. If this doesn't work by any chance, you might have the lock down here, which basically means you can't move the focusing point around. So always have that clicked off. And I will do a separate video that's going to talk about the other focusing modes because you do have, different ways to control the crosshair. But I'd say for the start, work with this. It's going to work great with your video as well as your stills. So what we'll do is I'm going to end this here, and then we'll start up a next section. I'm going to talk about the problem you had with the sand and the ISO noise. So we'll start that up now. All right, cheers. Bye. Alright, cool, and we're back again, guys. So now we're going to go on to the second part of Adam's question, which was specifically, sometimes it looks as if my video has sand flickering on the screen. Can you please explain what is happening? As I stated earlier, what you're referring to is digital noise. Now that comes usually at higher ISOs. When do you have to use a high ISO? Basically when the light starts dropping. That's why you'll notice big movie pictures, they have those huge 20-30,000 watt arcs that are able to light up entire streets, mainly because sensors just are not able to see the same sort of light as our eyes can pick up without degrading the quality of the image. So what I have set up here is, but it looks the exact same. The reason the light quality on the guitar looks so good is because just to the left I have a workman's light, which is putting out 1,000 watts of light. So the sensor in this D7000 is not struggling for light whatsoever. Again, I'm shooting with the macro lens. The f-stop is open to 3.2, which is pretty wide. The shutter speed is at 1/60th, and the ISO is at 100. Now, because there is 1,000 watts of light being beamed down onto it, it's also very hot. It's making me sweat. There is no struggle for light. The sensor's looking at it, and if anything, I could put the ISO up to 1,000, 2,000. It will still look fairly good. But what I'll do is show you an example of what's going to happen. So we'll record a bit of video just at the settings it is at the moment. So we're recording this audio now, and it looks fine because there's so much light coming in from the side. We're not stressing at all. We're also using quite a wide aperture. Now, the settings that are on the camera at the moment are looking very, very clean because we have enough available light that the sensor isn't struggling. So we've recorded that section. I'll just stop that there. Let's change it up completely. Now, because I'm shooting on the Nikon D3S as well, I'm going to have to turn off the 1,000 watt light, which is going to change the overall exposure for both of the cameras. So I'll kill this light, and as you can see, it's gotten much darker. So on the D3S, I'll increase the sensitivity so you can see what's going on. So the D3S is now shooting at 5,000 ISO. So it's a little bit grainy, but I'm not too fussed about that. But let's go back to the D7000, and what I have to do is, because I've lost so much light, the image has basically gone to pitch black. Now, how do I fix that? Unfortunately, I have to raise the ISO. So let's get the ISO and let's put it all the way up, and as you can see, the image is starting to come back in. Now, the problem again here is the color of the room has changed because I'm using different qualities of light, whether it be tungsten or fluorescent, different qualities. So I have to go and adjust my white balance. I won't do it for this sake, but you understand that the quality and the actual look of the image has changed. I'm also going to have to slow down my shutter speed to be able to get back to what we were looking at. So as you can see, this is, exposure-wise, this is more or less what we had before, but unfortunately it looks nowhere near the same. So the aperture is still wide open at f3.2. Our shutter speed's gone to 50th of a second, and our ISO is at 6400. Now for the D7000, unfortunately, that's pretty much maxed out. I've only got about 2 minutes left on recording on this, but yeah, unfortunately it looks a little bit blown out. So I'm just going to adjust this quickly so you can see what it does look like. There we go there. So that's what it looks like. I'll record a section on this and you'll see the difference. So unfortunately we've basically balanced it up so it's looking the same as it was before, but we've degraded the quality because, the shutter speed's gone down to about a 50th, which isn't too bad, but the ISO's come up to 6400 compared to 200 that it was before. So we've lost a lot of quality there. So as you can see, this is the difference between the quality. Always try and have enough available light and keep your ISO as low as possible. You can go to about 2000 and then you still have decent image quality, but I wouldn't recommend going any higher than that. So as I'll put the two of these together and you'll see the difference in the quality. The quality of light is not as good as well. It's just using the ambient light. It hasn't got the dramatic shadows and everything like that. So what I'll do is I'll do one more quick section, just quickly talking about going over macro again, the ISO quality and the focusing points, just to summarize everything. Alright, catch you guys soon. Alright, bye. Alright, and welcome back again. So again, thanks Adam so much for the question. I hope I helped you out in some way or another. We touched on the focusing points. We went into the sand flickering, which is referred to as digital noise. I spoke a little bit about the exposure triangle and some of the the relationship between f1.8 and f22. The macro focusing range I will do in a separate video. I thought that this is a little bit more that we need to talk about. Macro lenses are really specific in the way that they focus. They've got such a greater depth and such a greater range than most normal kit lenses obviously will. And we will talk about the ISO quality again in a further video. Anyway, if you're like Adam and you've got a question, make sure you shoot it through to me, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, email, whatever's good for you guys. That's more than me. And yeah, hope I helped. Looking forward to doing some more soon. Alright, adios.